record this, save it in MS Stream, and then generate a URL for this. I need to paste it in your Amazon attendance. Only then it allows me to mark attendance. So thank you so much for reminding me for recording this. Okay. So I hope others have joined. Shivangi, are you there? Genomics, Shivangi,
Yes, sir.
ethics.
Yes, sir. We are here.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. How about people from immunology?
Oh, yes, sir, we are here, sir.
Okay. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So let me share my screen grab. We are going to have a few more, slides, and then I'm going to throw this. We are going to see a lot of discussions coming up. Okay, so it doesn't matter whether it is BSc student or MSc student. I would strongly encourage all of you to be open about, your opinions. And as I said, when it comes to ethics, there is no black and white. You also have certain areas which is called as gray, which people may perceive neither as black nor as white. Although you may be absolutist, somebody may be relativistic, right? So opinions vary. So please don't hold back your views on any of the things. I may not be able to call out names, but I would rather suggest all of you to jump, when an opportunity comes to you. Okay. So let me share my slide. Today, I don't think we're going to have any YouTube video. We will have a slide and then, we'll discuss. All right. So we last time we saw, if you look at ethics, you have morals, values, ethics, they all combine together to form what we called as attitude, right? And I think attitudes, I'm sure all of you have experienced. The attitudes of different people are as diverse as people themselves are, right? Even in given homogeneous group, for example, whether it is BSc fifth semester or your MSc third semester, all of you are in the same class, but then your things, values, your attitudes are going to be extremely different, right? No, this thing about it. So we'll look very quickly at ethics, morals, morality, where do they originate, and all that. Okay. So let me. Okay, are the slides visible? I hope they're visible.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So ethics, we quickly saw last time, it's a branch of philosophy. It's a branch of philosophy. It's science, but it's also a branch of philosophy which is concerned with ways of thinking philosophically about morality, moral judgment. You have several different kinds of ethics, we are not going to go deep into it. We are going to, probably look through to get an overview. Okay. What is morality? Morality is human conduct and character, referring to those acts which it makes sense to describe as right or wrong, good or bad. Very clearly, every action can be defined as right or wrong, good or bad. Okay. But you may run into certain dilemmas, which we will discuss hopefully in today's class. Okay. Moral judgments based on consideration of how other people are to be treated and how others' interests are to be weighed against their own, right? When given a situation that, it is your interest versus somebody else's interest, how do you treat those cases, right? Do you put your interest first or do you put the other person's interest first? Theoretically, everybody will say, no, no, I'll put other person's interest first, but that may not be the case every time. In fact, there are legal laws that are put in place to make sure that you don't put your interest first. I'm sure all of you would have heard of people people being removed from the position of power because they could influence decisions, right? We will talk about this conflict of interest. So this is a case of conflict of interest. We will come back and discuss this in one of the classes. Okay. So when we talk about ethics, there are a lot of open-ended questions. although ethics we say it's good or bad, right or wrong, just or unjust, there are a lot of open-ended questions which results in dilemmas, ethical dilemmas, moral dilemmas, right? Many different dilemmas, okay? And the question is, are ethical decisions important? Because you live in a world, or we live in a world, where people don't care a damn about ethics, right? We all know that corruption is rampant, yet we turn a blind eye because we know that if you try to be a honest person, you're going to suffer, right? I mean, there are n number of examples where people have tried to be honest only to be, suffer a long-term consequence. And these days, of course, social media is a one powerful tool which can be used to turn the tide against some of these things. Okay, what happens in a world when where there are no ethics? I think that's going to be a terrible world, when there are no ethics. Even though, we are not as ethical as possible, but we still have some ethics left, and that is one thing where that makes it a little bit easier, right? What is the relationship between society, ethics, morals, and moralism? These are some of these questions which, hopefully, as the course progresses, we will be able to address. Okay. So examples of some ethical decisions. So this is a case example. I would allow all of you to read through this. Okay. I'm sure you would have, I'm not sure whether you would have known this Chernobyl incident that happened in Russia a long time ago, in the late 80s or in the early 80s. It was a major nuclear accident. And, you can imagine what happened in Russia. It had spread, that nuclear pollution had spread to many parts of the world that are far away from Russia. So you can imagine, how pollution can have devastating consequences because of one incident. Okay. So I would like all of you to read this. I will give you 2 minutes, and then we will take some questions. Okay? The screen is visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So hope you people would have read this, right? Okay. So what ethical decisions were involved in this? This is not a story. I think it should be rephrased as incident. So what ethical decisions were involved in this incident, and what kind of decisions did these engineers make? Can you volunteer?
So weren't the decisions not ethical? Weren't they unethical?
Very good. See, I'm not able to see the screen, so I would request all of you to first tell me your name so that, I can know.
Okay,
So,
so this is
Manaswini?
Yes, I had just answered.
Okay, good. So the question is, what ethical decisions were involved in this story, and what kind of ethical decisions did the engineers make? So what was your response, Manaswini?
So I said that the decisions that they made didn't seem ethical at all, considering the consequences that
Hmm.
took place after the
Very,
Chernobyl,
very good,
incident.
very good. So in many of these high-profile, places, for example, it could be a submarine. it could be a nuclear plant. They visualize several different scenarios and they play it out. They play it out. Many times they model it, but sometimes they may actually do it and they may not even know the consequence of it. Okay. And so, yeah,
It's Sam.
Sam, yes, Sam, tell me.
So I don't think I'm okay with them trying it out and playing with it because curiosity leads to inventions. But the fact that they chose to hide it and didn't take the didn't solve the consequences and chose to run away from it caused a disaster.
Okay, very good, very good, very good. Okay, anybody from the PG batch? Tejaswini, Anuradha, Sachin, Shivangi, anybody from the PG batch? Anything that you would like to say? Okay.
Sir?
Yeah, Kundan?
Sir, I just want to say that the very fact which was just said that curiosity leads to
Who is
invention.
this? Who is this?
Sir, Kundan, sir, Kundan.
Kundan, tell me. Yes.
Sir, I
Go
was
ahead.
saying that the very fact which was just mentioned that curiosity leads to invention. I would say that rather there is a responsibility for every individual keep the place he is working, and that is where his ethics and these engineers need they had to look into the consequences also. So I would say that this wasn't the place for such a curious practice.
Yes, yes, very good, very good. Okay, anybody else? Anyone else? Very good, Kundan. Okay, okay. So good. So, many a times, if you look at it, we get to know part of the story. We don't know the exact story, right? And many a times, what happens is they might have been authorized by somebody higher up to do some of these things. Okay, and many a times, if you see, it is all verbal. There is nothing written. So these guys probably would have obtained verbal, this thing to do a safety thing and they were probably not even sure what kind of disaster would be into this thing, right? Yet as Kundan said, I think being responsible, we need to take certain precautions. For example, if you see in this, they had taken this reactor 4 offline and then they bypassed 6 different security systems. If you have multiple security systems in any, process, that means that's a highly crucial process, right? If you have one or two security process, then that is probably, it might be an auxiliary or subsidiary process which something else can handle, right? So we need to be extremely careful when you do any of these things. Their decisions were unethical. It is very clear, but we still don't know the circumstances under which this thing happened. So it takes some more data to know this thing. So this is just an activity that was carried out in the US, and this of course happened long time ago. Now I think the situations might be different. So they say take out a piece of scrap paper, some paper, and one simple question: do not put your name on this paper. This is supposed to be anonymous. In fact, this plays out in the classroom. If you people were to be here in the classroom, we would have done this as an exercise, right? You don't need to put your name on the paper. This is completely anonymous. And then the question is, would you cheat on a very, very important exam? Let us say you are hanging by a thread, and you need to pass this exam by hook or by crook, as they say in our case, right? And then the question is, would you cheat on this important exam? Yes or no? Okay. So the question is posed to both all the students in this class. Let us say your ability to graduate depends on this exam, and this exam is a tough exam which you need to pass. Okay, you need to pass only. You don't need to, come up with high flying this thing and all that. You need to pass. Okay. The question is, would you cheat on this important exam? Yes or no? Because on this piece of paper, your name is not written on it, right? You could be ethically and morally responsible and say yes or no, right? In a survey, 65% of the American students said they would cheat. You know, I'm sure this number is going to be more or less, a little bit higher or lower, depending on where you go and which place you look at it. But this would have been so good if we were able to do it in our AVA institution with all you 50, 60 plus students. It would have been nice. But anyway, I would leave it to you, this question, right? So the question is, even when you said, no, I will not cheat, I would rather fail, were you truthful? Okay. And the question is it ethical to answer truthfully when people can actually label you, right? The only thing is, in this case, the saving grace is you're not putting your name on the paper. But then, we all know many people can actually, looking at the handwriting, they will be able to tell you know who the person is, right? So we have to be extremely careful. So who gets hurt when people are unethical, right? So what if General Motors cheated on you when they built your car? It could be General Motors, it could be anybody else. It could be Maruti, it could be Toyota, it could be anybody else. In fact, many of these organizations go way out of their this thing to be ethical, because the moment a brand gets labeled as unethical, it has very, very severe consequence. So, many of these organizations have ethical officers or ethics officer whose only thing is to make sure that nothing unethical gets done. Okay. Okay, so thinking back of the engineer, so this ethics and this thing is not only for engineers. It is also for the scientists. So you have ethics for medical doctors, you have ethics for engineers, you have ethics for life science scientists, you have ethics for literally every person, every person. Okay, so going back to the engineers, how ethical were the engineers? The engineers were not ethical at all, right? How moral were the engineers? Did the engineers had any this thing to do these experiments? They were not, right? So they were not, right? So what is the difference? We'll come back and look at the differences in the next couple of slides. Ethics refers to the standards of conduct, the standards that indicate how one should behave based on moral duties and virtues, which themselves are derived from principles of right and wrong. So as I said, ethics, morals, values, everything is closely intertwined with each other. Okay. And moral relativism, values are determined by the society we grow up, right? And there are no universal values. I won't say there are no universal values, but the same universal value can be different in different countries. Okay. And moral values are simply customs or conventions that could vary from culture to culture. What we consider as something normal, people may consider that as something nothing. People may not even consider that as a thing. For example, typical example, if you were to think, Indian women put bindi on their forehead, right? But if you were to go outside this continent, right, on either side, that custom or that convention simply vanishes, right? And you don't see that in any other place, or maybe relatively only few places, right? So these are something that are very, very dependent on the culture itself, right? And how where do we get the culture, right? We build all these cultures based on our own traditions, right? So one many a times people are morally consistent. Some people can be inconsistent. I won't say inconsistent, but they are going to be relativistic. Somebody who wears a bindi in India, the moment that person lands in US or Europe, they may not even put on the bindi, but just because they don't put that, that doesn't mean that they are bad or they are terrible or anything like that. Okay. So there are some questions which you can imagine, or you can answer for yourself. To what extent do you think the following individuals are morally inconsistent. There is no consistency in their thoughts. An anti-abortionist who supports death penalty. You can have people who can be staunch anti-abortionists, but they are supporting death penalty. Okay. A vegetarian who buys leather shoes. They are vegetarian by choice. Okay. They will not eat any animal product, including milk. I'm not saying some theoretical. These are all people who exist on this planet Earth. Okay. A socialist who talks high-fi social values, but who educates his children at private school. I'm sure there are umpteen number of examples in India. All our politicians talk about, government school should be this, government school should be that. All the children should go to government schools. But if you look at their own kids, they would be educated in high-flying convent schools, either in India or abroad. And then a politician who advocates family values but has an extramarital affair. Okay, and then an environmental activist who drives a big, SUV. Okay, or someone who thinks that stealing is wrong but makes illegal copies of computer software or music. This is something that is so rampant in India. People clone programs, right? And they freely pass it on. We share games. Each of them has their own IP associated with it, but we don't seem to care about the consequences. Okay. So anybody who wants to say something on any of the points here, I would rather have some volunteers. Any volunteers, or can we go ahead? Okay, I hope I'm not put all of
Sir,
yes, Aradhika.
this is yes, sir. About a few things like you said, like socialist who educates children at private, and environment activist who drives an SUV.
Yes,
I feel that every individual has the right to make their life better.
yes,
Uh,
definitely.
yes, and it's okay. But if they're making their contributions to the respective as their how they are, then I
Hmm.
think it's fine. They can do something good for themselves also.
Very good, Aradhika. The only question
And
is
sir,
when
yes
they
sir,
preach ki you should go to government schools, you should go to government hospitals for treatment, but they themselves fly out, right? That is
yes,
that is the inconsistency. So we are not talking about right or wrong, but we are saying that you can have people who can tell things to others, but they themselves can behave a little differently, right?
yes sir, yes sir.
Very good, Aradhika. Anybody else? All right. Okay. 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 So the question is, how do I know what to do? This is something that is a difficult question to answer, right? Given these choices, right? Put yourself in that situation and then see how would you, what would you do? Okay. So the question is, can you choose three values that are universal for all humans? And then the question is, why do you think these three universal values should be for all humans? For example, respect for each other is something that I think could be universal. Anybody else? Any other value that you could think of? Respect for each other or mutual respect. Anything else? Okay. All right. Um,
Sir, love. Love.
Very good. Who is this?
Radhita sir.
Aradhita. Thank you, Aradhita. Love for each other, extremely good and could be an universal value, right? Very
Uh,
good, very good. Yes,
the equal rights, and there's a freedom to peace, human dignity. All these are like
Sam. Sam?
Yes, sir, Sam.
Sam, very good, very good. Yes, yes. So the list is big.
Sir, kindness.
Very good. Who is this?
Ashita.
Ashita, very good, very good. So the list is big, right? And if I were to say pick any three, each of you will have your own choices, right? So I'm very happy that people are having different choices. Very good, very good. So the question is, we have made very clearly made a lot of scientific progress over the last maybe several hundred years. It says 300 years, but I would think probably several hundred years. But have we made moral progress? You know, that's a question that is still debated, right? Have we made moral progress? In fact, to an extent, we feel that as the population seems to have increased, we should have had much more moral progress. But I think the question is still debatable. Question is debatable, right? So the question is, are serial killers bad, or are they simply mad people who went about doing something wrong, right? And if you look at in a broad sense, are people basically good and they are corrupted by the society, or are people basically bad and they must be kept in line by the society? We still don't know. We still don't know. Okay. What do you think? What do you think, students? Are people basically good and are corrupted by the society, or are people basically bad and they must be kept in line with the society in the form of punishment, moral policing and all that? Your take?
Sir, this is Manaswini again.
Yes, Manaswini.
So, I think that, maybe in the beginning, society, came up with certain regulations, not because people were bad, but just to keep them in line. But then now, if you look at like today's perspective, they are, basically good. Nobody's born bad, right? So they are basically good. But since these rules that are put up by society are kind of blurred at this point, and they don't necessarily have to continuously apply, it can in a way work negatively and corrupt them.
Very good, very good, very good. So basically, your this thing is, people are basically good, and then as time progresses, because of these different rules, regulations, some may choose to follow, some may not choose to follow, and then people who don't choose to follow can end up influencing others and corrupting the process, right?
So actually, I meant it the other way around, where I
Okay.
was like, sometimes the rules that are set by society are so pressurizing that so society is corrupting the people who are following the
Okay,
rule.
like
That's why.
different. Okay. Very good, very good.
So
It's like our, you are in a traffic light. It's about to become yellow, and people are pressurizing you to go ahead anyway, right? I'm sure
Yes, that's
people who
basic
have been
sense.
on the road would have known that. Yes, yes, Sam.
So like to call someone bad or good, I guess there are a lot of factors that determine it. Like we obviously don't know the situation that made them. Like for you, it might be like, okay, no, that's wrong. But for me, it could be like that situation made him do it. Then there's also the idea of like how much the damage is. Cause if some like a kid steals a pencil or something, I won't punish him, but I'll tell him what's wrong.
Yes.
But if somebody steals a lot of money worth from the government, and we immediately think that he's a thief.
Yes, yes, yes. Very good, very good. So the consequence matters, right? The extent of the this thing matters, right? The act matters, right? So something. So the idea is, it depends on who the person is, right? Vijay Mallya will not steal a pencil or an eraser, right? On the other hand, a kid won't steal millions of dollars, but we live in a world which, anyway, things can go either way. So good. Anybody else? Yes.
Sir, I have one thing to say.
Yes, Kundan, right?
Yes, sir, Kundan.
Tell me.
So for arriving to a conclusion that whether someone is good or bad, I think that there has to be a third thing also, except the ethical or the moral part, and that is supposed to be the legal aspect. As if someone is doing something which is not legal, then doesn't matter whether he was being ethical or not, or whether he was being moral or not, he is bad.
Very
So
good.
I think that this third parameter should also be taken care of. So for example, you gave the example of Vijay Mallya or someone who is crossing the red light. So it doesn't matter whether he was in a hurry or whether he had an emergency, but that was illegal, right?
Very good, very good, very good. So I think all of you must be familiar with the story that is doing rounds. CSIF officer stopped Salman Khan from crossing the this thing that you know, right? All of you are aware. So what he was doing was what he did was ethical, right? He prevented him from boarding without security check, right? So that's part of the this thing. He was doing his duty, right? Good. So he was basically good, and then he kept the this thing. He didn't let it. He didn't let the other person influence his decision. Right? It doesn't matter whether it is Salman Khan or anybody else. It didn't. It didn't color his personality. Right? Good. Good. So there are some cases. So there are some cases. Okay. I won't go into this, but very quickly we will look at some more examples. Okay. So as we said, are people basically good and corrupted by the society, or are people basically bad and they must be kept in line by the society? So there are all these things are addressed by different theories of ethics. As all of you are saying, it all depends on the situation, right? And also depends on the person, depends on the extent of that unethical or immoral act and all that. Okay. So while it may be that some values are relative and that people may be selfish, more often selfish than not, we do not have to conclude that all values are relative or that people are always selfish. You still see examples of people who tend to help others, right? In spite of them, maybe suffering losses. Okay. So an ethical theory attempts to provide a set of fundamental moral principles in harmony with our moral intuitions. Okay, so you have many different ethics. As I said, you have ethics for medical doctors, you have ethics for life sciences students, you have ethics for PhDs. You know, maybe a couple of years ago, I guess, they started putting out ethical principles for doctorates. Making sure that you are not copying somebody else's work, you are not publishing somebody else's work. I mean, there is a huge list. There is a huge list. Okay, so ethics is something that is obviously the ethics for doctors, medical doctors, is going to be very different from the ethics for medical engineers. So these are all by their profession, right? By their profession, right? So you have religious ethics, which is, each religion has an authoritative rule book tell us what rules to follow, what not to follow, right? And then you have duty ethics, like for example, these engineers, right? They were doing their duty, right? They need to fulfill their obligations, right? Duties and rights are two sides of the same coin. So you have a duty, you also have a right. In fact, when you get employed, for example, you have a duty to do. You have, but also you have a right to do certain things under certain conditions, right? So duties and rights go hand in hand. Okay. So there are two major things theories. One is called utilitarianism, which basically says, which was propounded by Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill in the 1800s. Okay, they said there is one and only supreme moral principle, that we should seek the greatest happiness for the greatest number. So the idea is to have as many people happy as possible. That means you need to maximize happiness. Okay, but there was another social scientist by the name Immanuel Kant, and Kant's approach to ethics was, can your actions be consistently generalized? When you say maximize happiness, can it be a generalized happiness? Or ask yourself, what if everyone did the same thing? According to Kant, who is an absolutist. Okay, if you had watched the previous video, you will know what is absolutism and what is relativism. He's an absolutist, and he said if something is wrong, it is always wrong. If a child labor is wrong, it is wrong, no matter what the situation is, right? And okay, so duties and rights are two sides of the same coin. Okay, you could choose two rights from the UN Declaration of Human Rights, and you can rewrite them to describe this as a human duty. That is something that you could do it for yourself as an exercise. Okay. Okay, so another theory called utilitarianism. We care about morality because we care about human happiness. Okay, so the question is, what do you think is the relationship between pleasure and happiness? Is happiness just the sum of pleasures, or can we have many pleasures and still be unhappy? We know that there are people in the world who are unhappy, who are extremely rich, right? Who are extremely satisfied with what they have, but they're still unhappy, right? Any statement supporting this or contradictory statement? Okay, so the second question is, are the richest nations in the world home to the happiest people in the world? Sadly, not so. Sadly, not so. You have richest nations also having maximum number of people who are unhappy. Okay, and that is because their definition of happiness, joy, pleasure is very different from somebody from say third world country or some other country which is not as rich as these countries, right? Okay, Kant's approach to I will leave this. Maybe I will share the slides. You can go through this. So this is something that I thought interesting. Um, so which of the following is a special case that justifies breaking a generally accepted rule? Put yourself in that place, and then you could answer. Okay, you should respect the highway code, but it is okay to drive through a red light if you are late for work, right? Or you should respect the highway code, but it is okay to drive through a red light if you are taking a critically ill person to the hospital. So what do you think is right? This is for the class to answer. Others can answer. Okay, these are some
Sir,
questions.
I will
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, I will go with the second option because the person is critically ill. So I think it will be okay to drive through a red light.
Very good. Very good. Okay, so should you be doing the drive, taking a critically ill person? Should you not be calling an ambulance?
Sir, first approach is to call an ambulance, obviously,
Mm.
but if we are in such a place where or in such a situation where the ambulance cannot be, it is not possible to reach on time.
Mm.
So I will follow this step only.
Okay, okay, very good, very good. So, your jumping the red light can have consequence, right? You could hit somebody, or somebody may cross the road, right? You can have consequences. So, you doing this act itself, you need to be considerate of the situations, right? If you are driving through a place where it is not crowded, probably it is okay. But if you're in a busy intersection, and when you try to rush through, you are going to have a consequence, right? So I'll tell you one very this thing example. I'm sure I wish most of you should go to US or any of these other countries for your experience. Okay, in the US, if you were to drive in the wrong lane, you will be penalized. In fact, they might take out your driving license altogether. Okay, they will deduct points, and you may not be able to drive at all. Okay, only ambulances are allowed to go through this. More importantly, every place where you have four roads meet. Okay, they will have a stop sign, and irrespective whether it's in the middle of the night or during daytime, nobody is approaching, you're supposed to stop, pause, and then only drive. Okay, everything is monitored, and you may be your points may be deducted, and then you may be asked to pay a fine. So it is extremely important that when a rule is there, you need to follow the rule. And when there are exceptions, but those exceptions are granted only to something like, say, an ambulance or certain other instances, not for everyone. Okay. Let's look at 4. Okay. Murder is wrong, but it would have been okay to assassinate Hitler in 1942. Okay. Or murder is wrong, but it will be okay to kill someone planning a terrorist attack. Okay. So what are the choices before you? This is so different from question 1, 2, or 3, right? Yes.
So may I?
Yes, Kundan, tell me.
So for both the statements given in point 4, like I do agree. So because I have to say is that, so as I said in the very beginning, that there are 3 aspects, like the legal, the moral, and the ethical. So for example, if they were assassinating Hitler, so first of all, they were soldiers of, suppose, the United States who were doing so. So now these are those people who have been like groomed and trained for doing the same. So that is their work ethics, which their work asks them to do. And so that is why that is ethical for them. The second thing is that they have been trained and groomed in a way because Hitler is someone who is haunting their national interest, their national security. So if they will not kill him, then it will be immoral for them too. So again, killing him was moral for them. And because their government had allowed them to do so, so it was legal too for them. So I think that though murder is wrong, but assassinating Hitler was fine.
So your point B is well taken, right? Murder is wrong, but it would be okay to kill someone planning a terrorist attack, and these are definitely done by security agencies who have a lot of information. Nobody would go into a place just like that and do that, right? So they would have a lot of information. They would
Right.
have assessed many different things, and they would have a concrete evidence to say that terrorist attack is planned. And even then, I think if you look at the criminal justice system, which we will also talk about this in this course, okay, the first thing is to capture them alive, okay, and if they resist, then you are supposed to prevent them from running away. You're supposed to shoot at the legs, not anywhere else. And then only when there is something else in terms of self-defense, you could shoot the guys. Okay, so nobody would shoot out a terrorist just like that, but of course, many times situations can change, and so these are fast evolving situations. Okay, but when you come to 4A, murder is wrong, but even okay to assassinate Hitler. The question is, this is something that can throw a lot of what should I say, debatable points. Hitler has done the damage that he has done. Ideally, your criminal justice system says, even though Hitler is a criminal, you are supposed to bring him to the court. Okay, you have to prove that he is responsible for the genocide of Jews and Jewish population in and around Germany. Okay, only after the criminal, after those things are proven, he could punishment could be given to him, right? So it depends. It depends on, in fact, from a criminal justice side, it doesn't matter whether it's a Hitler or a terrorist. Okay, you need to give them the due process, and only after that you could hold them responsible for that act, and then you can punish them. Okay, so okay, so we will any other take on this? Okay, we'll look at one ethical dilemma. Okay, so I would again allow you to read through this, and then you can have a look at it. Yes, tell me. No, tell me. read through this, and this is something that's a beautiful example of dilemma. There are many dilemmas that you will face when you are in a situation, ethical situation. Okay, so any thoughts on? So there are three questions you could answer. What would Immanuel Kant do? As I said, he's an absolutist. Okay, and what would John Stuart Mill, who is the person who said maximize happiness, what would he do? And then what would you do? It doesn't matter what they do. I think what matters is what we do, right? Any volunteers?
So Sam,
Yes, Sam.
sir, I'd give the money cause after all, it's his money, it's his inheritance, and he makes his own life decisions. So even though if he uses that for good means or for bad means, at the end of the day, it's his choice, and it's his money.
You will be faithful to the promise that you made.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Very good. Anybody else?
Yes, sir. Shakti.
Yes. Yes, Shakti.
Yes, sir. So I will also give the money because both of them, the Kant also says that what is right, what is wrong is always wrong. So not keeping a promise will be wrong. And also Mill also says that at last we should seek the greatest happiness. So it doesn't mean that the person who died will not be happy or sad after he or she died. So maybe she's seeing us from somewhere, and that may make her sad
Very
to
good.
make a promise. So I would give it to him.
Okay, very good, very good, very good. So you and Sam have more or less similar thoughts, right?
Yes.
Okay, anybody else? Anybody else?
Sir,
Yes,
oh,
Manaswini?
okay. No, sir, somebody else was about to answer, so
Yes,
they can go ahead.
doesn't matter. Yes, please go ahead. Whoever it is, please let me know. Oh, this class is too good. You people are too kind to each other.
So to just me, so I think I'll give that money to someone who actually needs money, like someone who's poor or someone who needs it.
So instead of the person gambling and wasting away $500,000, which is a huge money, it's huge money, you would rather give it to some charity or maybe somebody else who needs it, and you think you will do it that way, right? Okay, so
Yes,
as Shakti pointed out, Immanuel Kant very clearly said that it is absolute. He's an absolutist. So according to him, the money should go to the gambler. You have nothing to do. Okay. On the other hand, John Stuart Mill says what you should do. He says to maximize happiness. You can maximize happiness by distributing this to people or individuals who may be in need of money, and that is what Tejaswini chooses to do. And the last question is, I mean, of course, your choice is between these two, right? You can be either an absolutist or a relativist. So good, good. Anybody else who would have a different view other than this?
So this is Manaswini.
Yes, Manaswini.
So, the thing is, that I personally would hesitate before giving the money because, see, yes, the nephew is a compulsive gambler, but what I'm focusing on is that he has a drug addiction. So, ignoring the money for a second, a drug addiction is a very serious issue which, could lead to an overdose or death, right? So, in a way, I would have indirectly funded his death, if that makes sense. So because of that, instead of giving it to somebody else who need it, I would consult another family member who was maybe close to the elderly woman and is aware of, the condition that the nephew is going under. And based on that, I would make a decision.
Very good, very good. What if that person says, "Give it to me, I will take care"? What would you do?
I would refuse, honestly, because I was like, it was the woman's dying
It was
promise that
between
she'd stay
you
with
and
me.
the woman was dying, right?
Yeah.
Right. Very good, very good, very good.
So
Yes.
it's Sam again. I was
Yes.
thinking like I want to change my answer. So what if I, instead of giving him the money, like instead of giving the whole money, give him some part of it regularly. Uh, if he stopped gambling and obviously had a clear record, like the blood test and all. So if he had a clear record, a clean sheet, then like maybe $1,000 every month. But the moment he breaks it, and yeah, that's it. The rest of the money is mine.
Oh, rest of the money is yours. Okay, that's good. That's good. Okay, okay. So that's part of the what we call as moral policing, right? You are making sure that it strictly adheres to certain principles or whatever you want, and only then he gets the money. Good, good. Okay. Anybody else? Any other take on this? Okay, so so ethical dilemmas have the potential to open up a can of worms. I mean, like you can have many different opinions. If you were to talk to a social scientist, he or she may give a different take. If you were to talk to a legal advisor, he or she may give a different take. Okay, and if you talk to a maybe somebody who is a moral scientist or somebody, he or she may give a different take. Okay, so depends on whom you're talking to, right? But eventually, I think all of us agree that for the benefit of the society and for the benefit of larger population, we probably need to stick to some kind of a legal counsel. Probably we take a legal counsel's advice and proceed on this matter based on their advice. Because tomorrow you may have $500,000 with you, but then if you get sued for maybe twice that amount or thrice that amount, it's not worth it. And it all depends again on your own situation. So, okay, so we will stop the class at this point in time. I have one request. All the mentor-mentees, please, we will meet at 2:30 or 2:40, whatever, time is available, suitable for you today. And we will discuss a few things. All right? Any other question? Think about these things, and if you think that you have a different take, we could discuss this in subsequent classes. But as I said, this is something that is going to be more of discussion oriented. Okay, today again we had some more slides than what I expected, but in the coming days we will be playing some short clips, and then you all will be participative. I am not going to be doing much of it. All right. But I definitely feel that we need more people to participate. All right. Okay. So if there are no questions, we will meet in our next class. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.